I do want to read a quote here from Khamzat Chimaev because I do think in some part he factors into this equation, whether or not people think he is worthy of a middleweight championship opportunity or not. Here's the quote from Khamzat. All these guys have fought each other and only me is undefeated, undisputed. They promised me after the Utsman fight, I will fight. I will for sure fight for the title. I won that fight, so I don't know what's going on. I heard Dana White say, I don't think Khamzat is next for the title. That's bullshit, man. If you promise me something, you have to answer it. In my mind, it should be me. So we'll see what happens, right? If I had to make a guess right now, I do think Dracus du Plessis is going to be fighting out of the red corner and the last fighter to walk at UFC 300. But it's really an interesting proposition. Now, I was at my twin brother's house today, and I couldn't find the genesis of these rumors, but he was talking about some situation whereby Leon Edwards would remain the welterweight champion, but the UFC would make that the 175-pound division and then maybe create a title at 165 pounds, and maybe you have Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler fight for that vacant title. Now, a lot of MMA fans hear that, and they probably want to throw up in their mouth. But the UFC can really do whatever they want. They created a BMF title, and a lot of people turn their nose up at a championship belt or a belt for the baddest on the planet, but that has worked out pretty well.
I mean, we talked about this years ago, John. I remember me talking about, and again, I don't work for the UFC anymore. I'm not trying to push this agenda or anything like that, but I talked about this a long time ago, how I thought that the sport in general should move away from, this welterweight weight class of 170 pounds, and that every division probably should be separated by 10 pounds, even have a 195-pound weight class, something like that. If the UFC can support it, which I think they can. But yeah, I think that it probably makes more sense to go from 185, 175, 165, 155. Now, the timing of this is interesting. I don't know if they're going to go this route. I think there's probably other things that they would need to establish. Perhaps. I don't know enough about that. But I do think logistically and logically, it makes more sense to have these divisions. Whether they do that or not, whether they do that to accommodate, Chandler and Conor, I don't. I guess, remains to be seen.
So I believe Conor McGregor's last win, correct me if I'm wrong, was Donald Cowboy Cerrone in January of 2020. Now, if anybody can fight for a UFC title 4+ years removed from their last mixed martial arts win, it would be Conor McGregor. But perhaps that is an option. I will say it seems as though the UFC women's featherweight division is no more. If they have come out and announced the death of that division, I have not heard it. But you are eliminating a women's division, so perhaps there is a window now to add another men's division. And I will say big picture. One thing Lorenzo Fertitta always wanted was to have these championship doubleheaders as sort of a fail-safe mechanism in case you lost a main event or a co-headliner, that you would always have a title fight on pay-per-view. We have had a few pay-per-views, UFC 291, BMF belt, right, but that have not been headlined by an undisputed UFC title fight. But those instances are few and far between. So I do think we are coming to a point, Kenny, instead of doing 12 pay-per-views a year, now doing 14, the timing might just be right to add another men's division.
Right. Well, also, and looking at the card, and I assume this is somewhat confirmed, right? There's 9 fights confirmed, I think, as of right now, UFC 300. So there is space, right? And there is space to maybe have, another title fight or two on the card. So